Hey everybody, I'm Chef Tom with allthingsbbq.com, and this is the herb butter roasted turkey. Well, today we're going to be preparing a very straightforward and delicious turkey recipe using the spatchcock technique. Our turkey is going to be stuffed with herb butter, roasted on the grill. It's a recipe that really anyone from novice to expert can prepare and appreciate using just a few important techniques and flavors. So we're starting off with about a 14-pound bird, and this is an ideal weight range, I think. I like to go 12 to 15 pounds on my birds. They just cook a really efficient amount of time, and they're not so big that they dry out while they're cooking. So we're going to start off by talking about this spatchcock technique, which essentially means we're going to cut out the backbone so that we can lay this thing flat. And when we do that, this is going to cook so much quicker than if we keep it whole. Not to mention, the dark meat and the white meat finish in roughly the same amount of time, which means nothing gets dried out, everything's perfectly cooked. Now, one of the key tools you're going to need for this job is a pair of good poultry shears. And we're going to start by coming in just to the side of the backbone, and we're just going to clip our way all the way down along the side of that backbone. So all the way up to where the neck and the opening on the top of the bird is. Now we'll flip it around, go right back down on the other side of the backbone. Going to work our way right in between the thigh bone and the backbone. You can actually see that knuckle right in there. That's that sweet spot you want to be in. And then that backbone is completely removed. And this you can save and turn it into turkey stock for your gravy or for your soups. So we've removed this now, but in order for this to lay flat, we need to make just a little cut right here along the breastbone. And then when we flip this over, we can press it flat. A little bit of force, and now you can see how those breasts are sitting roughly the same height as our legs, and that's why we're going to be able to cook this so much more evenly. Now, if you want to, you can stop right here. Technically, you've prepared a spatchcock style turkey right here. But if you want to go above and beyond and make things just a little bit easier on you when you're carving your finished bird, I've got a few more tips to show you. All right, so we're going to flip this over, and we'll find here that there's this little flap of skin that kind of connects where the main part of the breast cavity and the thighs are. And we can do some trimming here to get rid of some of this stuff. In fact, I often like to snip right through these last few ribs. We'll just take those right off. We're not removing anything that we would be eating. We're just getting it out of the way so that carving is going to be a little bit easier. Now on the thighs, we did a pretty good job of getting right around the knuckle on this, but there's still a bit of bone attached down here. So I'll just take my boning knife, slide it right underneath it, and cut through. Same thing going out the other way. And now we've gotten rid of that bone. So at this point, the thigh is completely boneless except for the bone that runs right through the middle. We can just make a few small trims here to get rid of some of this stuff that we're not going to eat anyway. Now on this side, I came a little bit closer to the spine. So there's more of a bone left behind, and this is a good thing to show you, so if you get into this situation, you can see how we're gonna remove all of that bone. We don't wanna take much meat off, so we're gonna keep the knife nice and flat, insert it underneath that bone, and just slide it out toward the end. You just wanna follow the bone, and then when you get to the knuckle, you'll know because you run right into it. See that knuckle starting to show right there? With a little pressure. There you go. Pop through that and follow right in between the bone and the knuckle. And now you can continue to slice right on the bottom side of that bone that you want removed. So that's where that knuckle was. And the rest of that's just bone. All right, so that's cleaned up really nice. These are practically removed. They're being held on by the skin at this point. So when you go to carve this thing, you're gonna slice right through the skin and be ready to serve thigh and leg. So coming around now to the top of the breasts, we wanna go ahead and remove the wishbone to make slicing through the breasts right there on the whole turkey even easier. So the wishbone runs right here along the edge of the breasts. And much like that bone in the thigh, we're just gonna slip the knife right underneath the bone and follow it out to the end. Same thing on the other side, just slip that knife right underneath that bone, out to the end, and then we'll follow it back to where it meets in the center. And you just kind of have to twist and pull this thing out. I like to grab a paper towel for this part. Halfway there. I didn't quite get it all clean, so I'm gonna have to use my knife just to get that last little bit. So pull the end of that out there. So that's really it. As far as the trimming goes, you're done. One thing I like to do before I get this into a brine, and we are gonna be doing a wet brine today, is I'll kind of get my hand underneath the skin here so you can start to expose some of that meat. And that way that brine really works its way into the meat. We're not gonna pull this all the way off. Just enough for that water to penetrate underneath the skin. And then starting from either side of the breast, you can do the same thing. Just run your hand underneath the skin there, kind of open things up. So now we're ready to brine, and today we are doing a wet brine, which means we're going to completely submerge this turkey in a liquid solution that's going to add some salt and some flavor to the bird. At the same time, that salt starts to open up the pores in the bird, and then it takes on more liquid, allowing you a juicier product in the end. Now, in its simplest form, a brine is essentially just water and salt. Often sugar is added as well, which helps with some of the browning when it comes to the cooking process. Today we're going to be using the Cattleman's Grill Butcher House brine. This has that base. It's got sugar, it's got brown sugar, it's got salt, but it also has some onion and some garlic and some extra spices and black pepper. Nothing that's gonna steal the show as far as flavor goes. It's really just a great base flavor for your turkey. So we're gonna start with 2 gallons of water into our briner bucket. And then we're gonna need 2 pounds of our dry brine mixture. There's our first pound. And all of this stuff, from the briner bucket to the flavors, you'll be able to buy the entire kit. To simply make this at home, one click, you can buy it all, whether it's just the seasonings you want or the tools as well. We'll hook you up with that to make your holidays super easy. All right, so that's the second bag. We'll whisk it up. Now this brine mixture is so fine that you really don't need warm water, which is great. You can start out with cool water. Just whisk this stuff to dissolve it, and then you don't have to worry about chilling down your brine before the bird goes in. Turkey's going for a swim. Head first, get it fully submerged. We'll lock our plate into place to keep it submerged. And this is going in the fridge overnight. Well, our bird is ready to come out of the brine, so what we're gonna do is get it out of there, dry it off, and set it on a drying rack so it can dry for about 24 hours before we cook it. So I'm gonna carefully lift our spatchcocked bird out to make sure we don't tear anything. Boy, you can already smell the aromas from that brine. It smells incredible. But what I want to do is just get in here with some paper towels and start to mop up some of this excess moisture. And that's really what this next part is all about, this next step in the process. So we've done a lot of work to get moisture to go into the meat. Now we want to do some work to make sure that the moisture doesn't sit on the skin so long that we can't render that skin out when we cook it. So let's flip. So that's why we want to let this sit out for about 24 hours. And when I say sit out, I mean uncovered. We're going to put it in the fridge, but we want this skin to really dry out. That's going to give us the best chance at a nice bite through skin. We make sure we can really render the fat that's coming out of the skin. But that's it for today. Really easy step. Just get it onto a nice little rack here, throw it into the refrigerator, and let it sit for about 24 hours to dry out. Well, we're back and the bird is all dried out, so it's time to get this thing seasoned up so we can get it on the grill. So our skin's really dried out. It's just a little bit tacky on the surface, but that's what we're going for. We want it nice and dry before we get it onto the grill. Now, what we want to do next is we're going to make up a little herb butter that we're going to stuff underneath the skin on the breast. So we're going to start with 1/2 cup or 1 stick of unsalted butter, and we're going to add to that our Cattleman's Ranchero seasoning. So this is a rub that we designed for poultry just a couple years back. and it's really become one of our staples every Thanksgiving now. So 1/2 cup of butter, 1/4 cup of that ranchero, and you can see in the rub those herbs, those bits of rosemary in there. Of course, there's a nice salt base, some pepper, a lot of great savory flavors. And we're gonna fortify those herbaceous flavors with some fresh parsley, thyme, sage, and rosemary. So these fresh herbs, we just wanna mince them down nice and fine so they mix right into that butter with the ranchero. For the fresh thyme, we're just gonna strip the leaves off the stems. Rosemary, we're kind of going to do the same thing, just strip those leaves off of the woody stems, and then we'll give those a mince. And kind of the same deal with the sage as well. Get those leaves off of there and mince those up as well. So a couple tablespoons of the parsley, and then about a tablespoon each of the rosemary, the thyme, and the sage. So now we're just gonna mash all of that together to form sort of a compound butter, compound herb butter with our ranchero seasoning, and we're gonna stuff all of this goodness underneath the skin of the turkey. So that's gonna add a ton of fat and flavor to those turkey breasts. You give this a taste. Oh yeah. Great, getting all the herbs. The garlic really stands out in that ranchero, which is fantastic. That's gonna work great on this recipe. Now the skin we've already loosened from the meat there, which is great. That makes it really easy to access the breast here. So we're gonna come in with a couple tablespoons of our herb butter and then just press that out. Should be able to see that right through the skin. You can see all that coloration from the herbs. So a few tablespoons there in each spot, and not all of this is going to stay put, but that's fine, because what is gonna happen is that flavorful butter is just gonna baste these breasts while the turkey is cooking. Now, if you've got some left over, feel free to go ahead and do the thighs as well, but there's so much moisture in that dark meat that it's not really necessary. So if you wanna use up all your butter on the breasts, go for it. All right, so now we've really got the seasoning underneath the skin. We could do a little bit more down here since we didn't do much butter, and we're just gonna go straight ranchero on the meat of the thighs and legs. Again, you wanna be careful just to release the skin from the meat, but not tear anything off. All right, so we've kind of got all of that underneath seasoning done. We're gonna season the skin, but first let's get it transferred to a foil-lined sheet pan. All right, we're gonna flip this over to make sure we get some seasoning on the backside. I'm looking at all this excess skin here too. We don't need all that there, so I'm just gonna trim a bit of that off. You really just need enough to kind of cover the breasts. And since we've already hit the thighs, we're just gonna get the backside of the breasts here, the back side of the wings. A little bit on the skin of the legs. And flip. So we're gonna season the wings here a bit, and then we're gonna tuck these back so that they don't sort of burn, or really just to help them slow down the cooking process when they're held in tight like that. Because they are so small, they're gonna cook faster than everything else. And then we'll go ahead and hit the skin everywhere else. So your seasoning is gonna help obviously season the skin, but also gives you a nice color on the outside. And then just to really help that browning, we're gonna hit this with a little bit of our spray duck fat. A little shine and a little brown. And this is ready to go to the grill. So today we're cooking on the Yoder Smokers YS640S pellet grill. We're running straightforward 350-degree roasting temperature. We're gonna stay at that roasting temperature until right at the end when we crank it up just to help brown off that skin a little bit more. So this bird's big enough that we're gonna go right on the main cooking grate here, and we'll probably give this a spin about an hour in, but before we close this up, I wanna go ahead and insert our probe so we can monitor the temperature on the Fireboard app. And we're gonna go for the deepest part of the turkey breast, because that's the last spot that we need to come up to temp. The turkey's been on for just over an hour now. We're clocking in at 120 on the internal temperature. I want to give you guys a little update so you can see what's going on, and then we're going to spin it around. So you can kind of see the progression of the cook there from when we put the bird on. It's now reading at 125 in the breast. And we can see that this thing's starting to take on some color. Underneath the skin there, you can see that herb butter. It's holding tight right on top of the breast there, which is awesome. So we just want to spin this, try to get some of that browning a little bit even, and let it ride. It's been an hour and a half total cook time now, and I just got an alert from my Fireboard app that we've hit 145 on the internal temperature. So what I want to do is aiming for a finishing temperature of about 155 in the breast and letting it carry over cook after that. I'm going to increase the temperature to about 425 just to get a little extra color on the outside of this bird right here at the end. So also in these last 10 degrees, I'm going to take some of this fat that's leaked out, and we're just going to baste the bird with a little bit of that butter. So again, this is gonna help with some of that browning, but also just getting some of that butter right there on the skin, some of that extra fat. So we've come up just over 155 now in the breast, and you can see how much beautiful browning we got just in those last 10 degrees. We're right around the 2-hour mark now, and this is ready to come off. Guys, this thing smells incredible. I mean, you're starting to get that brown butter smell. It's not burnt at all, but that mixed with those herbs and that ranchero seasoning, I want to dig into it now, but we got to let it rest for a little while. So let's give it a good 20 or 30 minutes before we carve it up. So to take this thing apart, we're going to go that flap of skin right in between the breasts. That's all that's holding that together. And you've got that entire leg and thigh comes right off. Now we want to take that piece apart. We're going to come right in between the two. We use a little pressure to pop that joint. Easy. And then right around the joint, we've separated the thigh from the leg. Now the dark meat can be pulled from the thighs for chunks, or just for presentation, you can put it out whole for now. So now we're left with the breasts and the wings. I'm gonna go ahead and cut these wings off of here. We're just gonna work right around the edge, and like everything else, there's a ball joint where they're connected. So you're gonna find that, pop it, and then remove the wing. Wing tips you can discard, but there's some good meat on those wings. So now we're left with our breasts, and if you want, you can go ahead and slice these right off of the rib cage. We've gotten rid of that wishbone, so we're able to slice all the way down through there, and you can see where all of our herb butter has gathered underneath the skin there, and that is just super juicy in the middle. Now alternatively, you can just take the entire piece of meat off of the bone and get a little bit cleaner slice at it. And boy, that is just super juicy in there. All right, let's taste it. Big herb flavor. Just the right amount of saltiness from that leftover brine, as well as our seasoning on there. The skins bite through. I mean, that's exactly what you're looking for. and it's so juicy from all that butter we added. Great flavor. We're not gonna forget about those juices and the fats left behind in the pan, and this is the reason why I like to cook a spatchcock bird in a pan. It's because you can save all of this tasty goodness. It doesn't go to the grill, it goes back into the bird. I gotta get a taste of some of this dark meat as well. Let's dig out some of that. Ooh, it's hot. A piece of this dark meat. It looks velvety. Oh man, what flavor. What's the texture? Just velvet in your mouth. A little bit of that butter mixed in with those juices. You get that brown butter effect. All these flavors are working together really well. Well, thank you guys so much for watching. Be sure to check out allthingsbbq.com or the link in the video description down below to get your hands on one of these turkey kits and make this for yourself. If you enjoyed the recipe, hit that subscribe button. And if you have any questions or comments or there's anything you'd like to see me cook, let me know in the comment section down below, and let's be good to one another. For more recipes, tips, and techniques, head over to allthingsbbq.com/thesauce. All Things Barbecue, where barbecue legends are made.